Ladies and gentlemen, that was May, December. Please help me now welcome screenwriter Samy Burch. Actor Charles Melton. And one of my personal heroes, Todd Haynes. Hey guys.
Hi, Raj.
Hi.
So, just so you are all aware, 1 month ago, literally like 1 month ago, we did a panel together at MoMA in New York. Julianne Moore was with us. Natalie couldn't be. But that was the first time that Todd had been able to do a Q&A. You had been doing Q&As and presenting this film, but the first time since the labor disputes had been resolved, happily,
For SAG.
that we could do a panel with Samy and Charles and Julie. And 1 month later, you guys are raking in awards and nominations like autumn leaves in New York, and you've been working nonstop. How are you guys feeling?
I feel great. I average probably about 13 hours of sleep every night. That's a joke. No, I honestly, I feel so much gratitude and to be, going through this journey with Samy and Todd and Natalie and Julie who aren't here. It's been such a gift and it's so much fun.
I just think it's important to check in because you're human beings as well as people we admire greatly, and I know it's been a lot. Samy, you good?
Can you imagine? I'm just like, I'm tired. No, I'm good.
It's kind of where I'm going with this, but
no, this has been so incredibly exciting and thrilling, and just, there are no words for the thrills.
no words left. It's all good. Well, look, I should mention they were nominated for 4 Golden Globes this morning, including one for Best Supporting Actor. It's been a big day. We're very, very grateful. Happy to celebrate with you tonight on that amazing accomplishment. But Todd, I began this screening by mentioning to the audience that, in a way, once again, we'll get to that, you have made a work of art that's kind of transcended being a mere film and become a vibe. And this is not the first time this has happened with something that you've created. In the 90s, Poison and Safe became very early 90s vibes. And pretty much consistently through your work and your career, you've managed to kind of enter, lasso, and navigate the slipstream of culture in ways that are just really remarkable. And it's happening with this film right now. Does it ever enter your consciousness as a creator that is something that you do? I can't imagine you anticipate it necessarily, but talk about your work really entering this kind of conversation, because it's something that you're very adept at.
Thank you, Raj. It's been this experience with these guys and on this particular film has been a really, really exceptional one, and one that I can distinguish in all of these various ways, in how it came into being so quickly, and the energies that collected around it, and that all became necessary in getting this film made as quickly as we had to, but it made for this experience in Savannah where we shot the movie last fall. And there were a lot of new relationships involved in it. So I'm answering your question more comfortably from the inside out.
Sure, no, anyway.
Because that's sort of how I have to and do experience my filmmaking, and each project as its own unique series of demands on me and obsessions and concentrations of energies each time. How they But I will say, and I've said, and I was sort of putting that in context was that we finished this movie, the film got into competition at Cannes, all these things that you hope for happened, but I also had a retrospective in May at Pompidou with all of my films, and just last week another full retrospective of my films opened at the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens. So I've also had this situation where I've been looking at my whole career and body of work and had to and examining that strangeness from it being these things that you make, that you put out into the world, and they end up sort of having their own lives, and they come out of you and they're like your kids. It's been said many times that people's work, the things we make, are like our kids, and they kind of have to have their own lives and their own independence. And films that I've made have attracted, curiously, very distinct audiences that aren't all the same. The kind of people who got really into Velvet Goldmine were not necessarily the same people who got really into Poison, or the same people who got really into I'm Not There or Carol. They all kind of generated their own unique cultures in a way around them, and of course they come out of culture. They're the products of my own love of movies and my own interest in themes and ideas that come out of various very specific histories and narratives and traditions. And I guess, and in a way, I feel like I give that back out to the audiences that find my films, and I think that must be how, in some cases, they tap into things in the culture. This one, I just think we didn't know. You never do. You never know what it is you're really doing, right? You just are following all your instincts, and you're in that tight combustion of energies. And there were just so many thrilling things about making it and adapting Samy's extraordinary script and finding Charles, to play that role that the whole film rests on, and still having Julianne Moore once again at my side. But it's a curious and complicated film and experience for audiences, and yet audiences seem to be responding to it. And so that's been very gratifying about audiences in general.
Yeah. No, and the first time I saw this was in a theater by myself with one other person, and we were like howling all by ourselves in different ways. And I'm so jealous that those of you who experienced it the first time got to do it with many people, because that would have been even more fun. This is going to be a question for you two, but it's about Todd. Todd and I have talked in the past about the arrival of Haynesian cinema, right? And I describe this as, in the past, okay, it's kind of Haynesianism in this moment is the point where your work, you've eclipsed being referencing other people when referring to your work, right? And what we're actually talking about now is you being the point of reference for your own films. And that is, it's a liberating thing for those of us. I've been one who's actually been on the journey, most of the way with you. I don't know that there's a film that I actually didn't groove on, but to see that emerge, that there's someone can say, yeah, that's a Todd Haynes joint, and that's what that means to me. I'm wondering what that might mean to you, and there's no wrong or right answer to this, but Samy, maybe we could start with you.
Well, I mean, I think that there's just a fearlessness throughout all of Todd's movies, and they exist in these, just as you said, this culture around them. They exist in these different spaces, which just as an artist is so inspiring, because it really does feel like, you get to, you kind of go, what do I want to do? What am I feeling right now? And that is just the most inspiring thing. But they always have, so always so thoughtful and specific and gorgeous. And I mean, I'm just really going free
Do it.
association
Yeah.
here. I hope that's fine.
It's a safe space. But
Thank you. I feel like there are some, when I watch Far From Heaven or when I watch Mildred Pierce, the miniseries, which I think is one of maybe the best miniseries that's ever been made.
Amen.
There's like a curiosity where I go, wait, people can film things that look like this, that are this beautiful? Like I thought that was like, oh no, the cameras are gone. Like the film's gone. You can't do it anymore, And that's just one element of all of it, and all the amazing people he's found. I'm going I'm going back and forth, but I mean, there's there's a loss for words of what all of Todd's work encompasses. For me, just me, and then let alone everyone would probably have a different answer, I'm sure, in this room.
I liked your answer a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Todd Haynes. Todd. It's hard not to get a little emotional listening to you talk about Todd and Samy talk about Todd, because, I've watched Todd's films, and I've always known of the legend of Todd Haynes, and I grew up a military kid watching blockbuster movies with my dad my whole life. There really wasn't this world of art house cinema. And I remember when I watched Safe for the first time, it ended on a inhale, and then the movie was done. And then it was up to me to exhale on my own. And the experience of asking myself questions throughout the whole film, constantly, like, what is the truth? What is right? What is wrong? Like, it was the most, I was going through a journey with myself and my own humanity while watching Todd's films. And I've seen all of his films. I mean, Velvet Goldmine I've seen 7 times. I'm Not There I've seen 3. Safe I've seen 4. I feel so bad. There's one movie I haven't seen, and that's Wonderstruck, but I'm going to see it. But, when it came to working on set, when I first met Todd, it was in New York for our chemistry read with Julie. And there's just this, it's hard to, I'm sorry, because you guys didn't get to experience this, but it's this, when Todd's talking to you, there's never his brilliance, his genius, there's never a word that's ever wasted. And you feel like it's just you and him in the world, and you can do anything. And Todd, just having that, I mean, I could only tell Joe's story because of Todd,
We're going to change the subject.
Okay.
Can I just say, I know this sounds just, because I'm watching these two people who knew my work, but who I didn't know before I met them on May December. And I knew Julianne, of course, and I knew the work of Natalie Portman, and I knew the work of all the heads of my creative departments that I put together on this movie, even though some of them were first-time relationships. But everything that this movie belongs to the fact of the work and the brilliance of these two people right here, and the way it succeeds as a film rests on the performance and the character and the way Joe is positioned in the script to carry that really delicate but enormous burden of our emotional connectivity to the story. But the story and the layers of the script and the complexity of these characters and what it offered all these people I already knew is so remarkable. And of course, we keep talking about it on stages as we promote the movie, but I never feel like I can talk about it enough. And I always feel like each time we talk about it, I'm seeing yet something else in it, even having made it, right? And Charles says these beautiful, sweet things about me, but Charles sent me a tape of his performance, of his reading of Joe, that was unlike any other actor who was auditioning for the role. And there were some fine actors that we were looking at. And I kept watching it over and over again. And it was a different Joe than I had pictured. I don't know exactly what I pictured when I read it on the page, but it completed the whole story for me. I saw Joe in the present. I saw Joe in the past. All of a sudden, the enormity of this and really complicated, delicate man's life that had been trapped in time, by circumstances. This tender person, this real person with a beating heart and pulse was there in it. So he taught me to understand this script by that performance. And then we met. And then he met Julie, and it was like, holy shit, they share so much, and they got along so beautifully together, and it was so remarkable what happened that day when you guys met. But anyway, it's a really, it's been. But we had this time making it that we keep going back to as our touchstone during all the great stuff that's been happening with the movie. And we know that's really what it was.
That's the cake. Those 23 days in Savannah, Georgia. Every second, every minute, everything mattered. And that's, everyone. We were just being led by Todd the whole way through. And
we really were.
Yeah.
I kind of want to let us all just start crying, but it's been an emotional day. It's been a long ride. No, you mentioned the layers in the script, and that was my next line of questioning. I mean, the evolution of the appreciation of this movie has also been kind of wild, right? It's like this elation of discovery at first, and then, frankly, the kind of offshoot, the roads that led to some kind of frankly tiresome retreads of the definitions of camp and can we park that? But actually I feel like now we're arrived at a place of a more serious discussion of the emotional manipulation of the characters and how the performed lives there's real danger in the performativity of a lot of these characters. And what it makes me think, Samy, is that people are actually getting to the layers of your script. And I'm just wondering how it feels for you now to finally, at first you're hearing one thing, then you hear another layer, and then finally you're getting to, are people getting to it? How many more layers do we have to peel back where we actually get to the complexity of what you've written?
Well, I think that people are absolutely really understanding the film in a bunch of ways. I mean, I think there's this. It's almost like one of those cards, like those Pokemon cards with the hologram, where it's like some people maybe can see the humor, some people maybe don't want to. That's fine. And there's this sort of double image also of, the way we see the scenes with Joe and Gracie, and then we see them in the past as well. There's a lot of that hologram happening, I think. But that was certainly my hope in writing it. Was that there's this emotional, humane tragedy at the center, the spine of it, but then a lot of other stuff on top that allow us to look at why we are recreating these miserable stories over and over, why we obsessed about them especially in cases like this, the novelty of a female predator, why these women have become celebrities. It just felt like there was a lot of fertile ground here to look at.
Yeah. Oh, and to discover, as people continue to discover. Charles, Joe is at the center of a lot of this manipulation, right? Like his life has been, especially by Gracie, kind of like shoved in different directions at certain points, and he's just beginning to discover his own autonomy in a way. But talk to us about acting, not necessarily Joe himself, but you, Charles, acting with your acting partners who are actively manipulating you through their performances, right?
Yeah, I'm a little envious of what Natalie got to do with her character, because she's an actress playing an actress, studying another actress to play her in a movie. And I don't know if I got that right, but she, Natalie gets to unwarranted watch Julie do her thing.
Yes.
Because she's doing it for her character. So many times I wanted to just watch Julie and Natalie do their thing. Just be in awe. But I couldn't, I had to consciously tell myself all right, Charles, you got a story to tell. Go in the corner, do your thing. But we had so much fun on set with Julie and Natalie and Todd, and we were just laughing so much. But, there's this kind of this hyper focus that they have on set, and this concentration, and this, just by being in there with them, they just elevate everything around them. With Todd leading us, I call Todd, Julie, and Natalie the trifecta of excellence, right? But Joe's character, he's sandwiched in between these two women that are very sure of themselves. I think you have Gracie, who is almost, in my perspective, kind of like this. There's this delusion, this narrative that she's telling herself, right? And then you have Elizabeth, whose motive is to find whatever she can to expose this truth, to find this sort of truth without any care in the world of how that may affect anybody. And that's why that scene with Julie and Natalie putting the makeup on each other, Julie is putting her face on Natalie's face, or on Elizabeth's face, is so incredible. And then you have Joe, who he's not really sure of himself. His emotions and his repression, that tragedy, that adolescence that was taken from him at the age of 13 with the responsibility of being a father, lives in his body. As a 36-year-old father, suburban dad, lives in his body. And we see throughout Samy's beautiful script this journey that Joe goes on, where he's slowly acknowledging things he's never even thought about. What if I was too young? And he's not in that scene with him and Julie, or him and Gracie, Joe and Gracie. It's not. He's not pointing fingers or accusing anyone or anything. He just wants to talk about it. And so for so long, he's repressed that. He's been walking on eggshells, afraid to ask that question, and he does. And then he gets gaslit, manipulated, and it's heartbreaking. But he still comes back. The next day he's making pancakes for his kids before they go off to graduate. And for me, Joe, when I think about Joe, the way he was, what I discovered through Samy's words and with Todd is, Joe is the guy who will eat the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth plate of serving just to make the other person feel good. Yeah. And he'll probably feel disgusting physically, but he doesn't think about himself ever.
Yeah. It's just a coda on that. When we talked to New York, we touched on the affectations of some of the characters, and certainly Gracie's lisp, which I loved you describing as, I think it was you, Samy, who described this, or maybe it was Julie, as something that she activates or decreases based on how infantile she wants to be seen as or treated, right? Like, I'm a child, help me. So I'm going to like lean into this affectation. And I was thinking about Elizabeth, like, one thing she just keeps doing is checking to make sure people are looking at her, right? She's like, I'm looking at you, but I'm really looking at you to make sure you're looking at me, right? And Joe, he seems almost affectation free, right? And that's part of just like he's real, right? Or as real as he could possibly be given where he is. Does that read true, Todd, Samy?
Well, I mean, I certainly think, yeah, these women, I mean, Gracie by, well, we don't know if it's by design or if it's as natural as any, like jaguar in the jungle. But there's certainly a lot of armor and walls, and I think with Elizabeth, I mean, I think we come to know that her armor comes from a place of insecurity and doubt, and there is a lot of affectation and insincerity. I mean, the mask is on very tightly, but Joe, yeah, is there's a purity. He's some of his walls are up because he's under siege. I mean, they're defensive. So. I think it's so beautifully done by Charles. There's so many little choices I've seen over the times I've seen the film that, little micro moments that are always surprising to me and always so beautiful.
I would just add, because I think it was something Natalie was, we were talking about as being a source of sort of something unfamiliar to her, is that she commands such attention and power in the world, and her beauty and her privilege and her fame. Joe's somebody who has had by survival, by the needs of survival, not been able to see or be seen. He doesn't see himself as a beautiful man who might be a source of attraction to this beautiful actor. He doesn't see her looks to him. They're all blocked. And that creates a sort of infuriating frustration in Natalie, in Natalie's character, Elizabeth, that she's not getting the responses that she has learned in the world in Joe. And so that perplexity of on her face at the X-ray scene when you flip on the light and she's sort of like, "What? he didn't jump me, in the dark, But that fuels the seduction all the more urgently and makes him be even more this sort of prey, this sort of vulnerable, exposed object of her needs to be seen and to be known.
Look, you have been working really hard, as we mentioned, in the last month, and talking to a lot of folks, doing a lot of these. I mean, this is incredible. Thank you so in advance for what you've shared with us tonight. I'm just curious, as a last gesture, are there any questions you're surprised you haven't gotten yet? And, you're only like a third away through this tour of talking about this movie. Or maybe half for you. You've been talking about it for a while now. But is there anything you're surprised that people aren't curious about yet? I know, it's a backwards question.
Because if I say it, then I have to answer it.
Yeah. Right? See how that works? Tricky.
You're really good. Raj,
Watch this guy.
Yeah. I don't think the scene... Yes, I'm going to choose the scene I was on. The scene with Joe and his father, I don't think gets talked about enough. There's so much. That was such a meditative scene when we were filming it, and so much is being said without anything at all. And this sign of Joe, you kind of see him almost, just knocking on the door to his dad to just maybe open up a little bit, And he's mirroring his father. He's lighting that cigarette, but it's a sense of pride I think his father has in that moment where his son Joe is talking about things. You know, the kids are going to be gone soon, and he's like, you know, you'll have more time for yourself, and you know, he's just not suppressing those thoughts. And I think there's just this moment where his dad looks at him when Joe lights that cigarette, and I think it's just so beautiful. And you know, I think the misconception is sometimes that, you know, no communication is like, you know, lack of vulnerability, but I think it's a very vulnerable scene, and there's just so much power in that silence and with what they share in that scene.
Thank you for that. Thank you for asking my shady trick question.
Raj?
Hey, Golden Globe nominee Charles Melton, you can take it. Look, we're so honored that we could share this special day with you and be on this journey with you. Enjoy it. You guys are all smiles, and we love that. Thank you for sharing May December with us.
Thank you, Raj,
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.